All right. Hello. It is 6 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. This microphone might be more for the folks over Zoom and Facebook than the people in this room, but this is how the people on Zoom and Facebook will hear us. So when we do Q&As, we'll walk around with it and we'll hold you guys to speaking into the microphone as well. So, good evening. Welcome to the Parkville Living Center. My name is Marcus Flores. I'm the executive director, and it's so good to see your faces here, neighbors, partners, friends, coming together in the spirit of community. In a world where conversations can so easily become confrontations, gatherings like this remind us that we can hold differences of opinions and still hold respect for one another. That we can challenge ideas, particularly our own, without being disagreeable. And that we can work towards shared solutions in listening, empathy, and understanding. Here at the Parkville Living Center, we believe that community is built on connection. That's why we're honored to host this evening's discussion with Mayor Dean Katerndahl of Parkville and Platte County Commissioner Allyson Berberich. Both have stepped forward not just to speak, but to engage, to help us think about how local government and community members can collaborate with civility and purpose, even when the issues are complex. Our goal tonight is to engage with our local leaders, to learn about the state of our city and that of our county, but it might also be to meet a new friend. So introduce yourself to someone new, talk to somebody new, and strengthen your sense of some community. Practice listening deeply. Remember that the health of a community depends not on how loudly we speak, but on how well we hear. Thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you all for showing up, for caring, and are at their best when we show up together with open minds and open hearts. So let's have a thoughtful, respectful, and inspiring conversation tonight. And as I mentioned, this evening is about connection, understanding, and having a shared experience. We're grateful to have with us two public servants who represent not only leadership, but a willingness to engage in open, honest conversation with the communities they serve. So please join me in welcoming Mayor Dean Katerndahl of Parkville and Platte County Commissioner Allyson Berberich. Each of our guests will share a few thoughts reflecting on their position and the state of our county and city, and then we'll move into the questions and answers with all of you. So, Mayor Dean Katerndahl, please join us and speak.
Thanks, Marcus, and thanks to both to the church and to the Parkville Living Center for hosting this. And I guess hello to all the folks out in Facebook land. So good to have you here tonight. So I thought I'd just update you on a few projects and maybe touch on a couple of the themes that Marcus mentioned along the way. So our biggest project is Highway 9, which is redoing Highway 9 as it curves around the downtown. So about from 4th Street down around downtown to the entrance of Park University, but also of how we deal with traffic coming into and going through the downtown area. If you're familiar with it, you come in and you have that jog, makes it hard for pedestrians sometimes. And so we had a quite long and in some ways contentious discussion about what overall strategy we wanted to follow. But the Board of Aldermen chose one solution, which is to take the road from Highway 9 down around south of the fire department, south of Bentley's guitar there, just along the north side of the tracks, come up to Main Street, and then you jog up to get back, go around the power plant and back out on FF. So doesn't take any buildings. That was important to everybody, but we think it'll provide a more pedestrian friendly downtown. It'll allow us to make First Street from basically Highway 9 to Main Street a plaza, a pedestrian plaza. Maybe the restaurants will have tables out there, we'll have events, whatever. So we think it'll in the end make for a better downtown. So, but it's a more complicated project than just sort of redoing Highway 9 and forgetting about downtown. So that was something we had to wrestle with. And there were differences of opinion in the community, but we came to a decision. One of the big issues, if you're familiar with it, is that there was concern there wouldn't be enough. The fire department, the fire district would like to enter that fire station be able to pull trucks through from the south side instead of having to back in off of Highway 9. And they were concerned that there wouldn't be enough room to make the turns and to stack their biggest truck outside and that. And so we've been working with the railroad to clear up where is the right of way, where's our property, where's their property. All of this all goes back to records that are in the late 1800s, all based off of the center line of the railroad track, which is no longer where it was when it was all done. So we finally come to some agreement. The railroad finally said, okay, you're correct. Your surveyors are correct where the line is. And so now we're process of formalizing that. And we just met this morning with the fire district to go over. So given this is where the right of way is, this is what the plans would look like. Gives them adequate turning lanes and adequate room to stack their trucks. So I think we've resolved at least that issue. On December 8th, we'll have a public meeting at City Hall from 5:30 to 7, where we'll present kind of the status of the project, but in particular, talk about streetscaping. What do we want the downtown to look like? Do we want more trees? Do we want benches? What do we want that plaza area to look like? And so start to get some input on that. Especially because it's going through the downtown, it's a very complicated project. So it'll be another year in design and with all the engineering drawings before we actually start work in January of 2027. So that's kind of the status of that project. Also along the way, as we do that, we have a separate grant we've talked about putting in a quiet zone when the trains come through so they don't blow their horns. So most people, not everybody, would like to have that. That's been on the agenda for a long time. So we are going to go ahead and do that as a part of this project. It'll have what they call wayside horns. So their horns just focused there on those two crossings. And so it won't carry up into the bluffs and all the other places around. So that's still going forward. Another big project that's been several years in the making is a sidewalk on Bell Road. If you ever travel Bell Road, it's kind of an old country road, very hilly, no curbs, actually used by quite a few pedestrians, whether it's students going from apartments over to Parkville or people going up to the Price Chopper. In fact, there's a person in a wheelchair, the little motorized wheelchair that goes up there, pretty dangerous. So that's been a big project. So we have grant funds again to do that, and that work the actual construction will start after the first of the year. So we're pretty happy about that project. Of course, you know about the farmers market was run into by a couple trucks, and after a long period of trying to get the insurance settled, all that, and thanks to the county who provided $1 million grant from their park funds, we now have a new farmers market, and we're just completing the kind of tail end of that project, which is to redo all those parking lots down there. So the main parking lot, if you've been down there this week, is inaccessible and it's being totally reconfigured and repaved and that. And then we still have some landscaping to do, but that project's about done. Another big project it's been over a year really, is to update our park master plan. And so we've been in the process of doing that. It's now been accepted and approved. And the top three priorities are an accessible playground for all ages and all abilities. We probably right there near, if you know, we're right at the end of Main Street, basically, just to the right in the sort of entrance to Platte Landing Park. A Western park, the city, as a part of the Creekside project, uh, the developer gave us I think it's about 7.5 acres. One time we were going to put a police station there, but it was felt to be too far away from the action. And so we're now going to be renting a space right in the middle of Creekside, the commercial area. And so make a great area for a park. And we really don't have any parks out west outside of the counties put in trails out there and then the city maintains them after that. But we don't have a real park. So our second top priority is a Western park. And so we're starting work on that. And then the third one is accessible bridge. If you familiar with the park, just before you go into English Landing Park and cross over White Aloe Creek, there's a parking lot that goes along the side of White Aloe Creek. This would put a bridge from the southern end of that parking lot across into the heart of English Landing Park, and that would be an accessible bridge. We put handicap parking spaces down at the bottom so it's more accessible, closer to the heart of the park, if you will. So those are the three top priorities. We'll be doing other things as well. There's a new pedestrian bridge is going to go in across Rush Creek there on Main Street, just next to Main Street, which will allow us then to take that little barrier out and make the Main Street bridge over Rush Creek 2-lane instead of 1 lane. So you always have to stop and let one way or another go. So that's in process. That either the end of this year or first of next year, that'll happen. Of course, we've kind of transitioned our wetlands. When I started 3.5 years ago, I guess I should mention I'm in my second term. Mayors have 3-year terms in Parkville. So I'm in the first year of my second term. So when I first came in, the Corps of Engineers had done a project down in the wetlands and it was dry. And they tried to tell us it was a dry wetland. And I kept saying, no, that's not a phrase we accept. So they came back, they redid it, signed their top crew to do it, and now it holds water, and we get egrets and ducks and lots of birds and that. And so it's been a process of then planting, doing wetlands plants down there and that. And so the Corps has just sort of turned it back to us that they've finished their work and will maintain it and expand it as far as more signage, explaining what's going on in the wetlands, have more programming around it. So we're excited about that, and that's worked out real well. So, and then there'll be other things in the parks. I did want to mention the police. You know, about this time last year, we were down like 8 positions or something. There was a lot of concern. Now, most cities have this problem. Kansas City, Missouri at one time, at least this time last year, was down 300 officers. Of course, they're a lot bigger city, but 8 officers is a lot for us. So we put a full court press on it made sure our benefits were at least as competitive as everybody else in the Northland, get bonuses. We now support 2 recruits in the police academies, uh, doing things like that. So now we're down only 1 police officer. We have 2 officers or 2 candidates for that last position, and as well as these candidates in the police academy. So a big changes there. Part of that has been we've really updated all our technology. So all the police cars now have laptops, and then lots of software that tracks cameras and connects to the county's dispatch directly and e-ticketing. And this is very attractive to the police officers. They like to have the latest technology. So that's actually been a big help as a part of keeping recruits and getting recruits. And also, as I mentioned, we'll be opening, it keeps being any day now, but any day now, a substation out in the Creekside area, right next to the new Fetterman's, if you happen to know where that is. We're just waiting for Google to make the last connections or something. So, but that should be any time. And then the last project I wanted to mention was something new for us. Of course, we're pretty suburban community. We're pretty spread out. So we haven't really had public transportation, and it hasn't, in its current form, buses running on lines, hasn't made much sense for us. But Parkville, along with 4 other Northland cities, North Kansas City, Riverside, Gladstone, and Liberty, have gone together to hire a company called Guest. It's a new operation to provide on-demand transportation services, kind of like Uber, but they don't have, it's not your neighbor driving the car unless they're employed by Guest. So they actually screen the drivers and do background checks and all that stuff. So we know who's driving it. So for $3, you'll be able to use an app, or you can call in and schedule a ride, and it'll serve any place within Parkville, within Riverside, within Gladstone, North Kansas City, and Liberty. So you can go to any of those communities or any healthcare facility in the Northland. So if you need to go to St. Luke's North up there, that's in KCMO, you can still use this service to go there. For Parkville, now these other communities have had some form of public transportation over the last few years through the Area Transportation Authority, but Parkville never has. So this is strictly a pilot. Let's see how this works. What populations within the city could use such a service? So we've been working with the Parkville Living Center and Senior Services, who's one of our partners, we think it'll be a service that seniors can use. Other people that don't have transportation, need to get to work, need to get to a doctor, whatever. Also, Park University is one of our partners. Their students can use a way, it's just been a barrier just to get up to the grocery store to get food or something. So they're a big partner in this as well. So this kicks off tomorrow. And I think Channel 5 actually had something on it tonight, I understand. So we're excited about it. We had 5 different partners came in with the city because we didn't have the resources to do even this pilot on our own. And folks stepped up. Creekside, e-shipping, Park University, Senior Services, and St. Luke's are our partners. So we each chipped in an equal amount, and we're going to try it out this first year. and we'll see how it goes, and we'll report to everybody. But we're excited to see this come about. So I think with that, that covers a lot of the major projects going on. Happy to answer questions about anything else, though.
Yes, I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions. There's a lot of things in there to expand upon. So get your questions ready. There's notes in front of you. Um, but now we'll turn it over to our County Commissioner, Allyson Berberich.
Thank you. Yes, hi, I'm Allyson Berberich. I am the first district commissioner for Platte County, one of 3 commissioners at the county. I've been in office since January. So when I ran for commissioner or was approached about running, probably like a lot of you and a lot of people in the community, I wasn't really sure what a commissioner did. So Marcus and I talked earlier this week and talked about, I'm just going to do a little overview of what we do in the commissioner role, and then a little bit about what we're working on. And I don't know if I have as an exciting of a list as Mayor did, but I'll share a few fun things. So at the commissioner level, like I said, there's 3 of us elected commissioners. We work up at the Platte County Administration Building, and really we are charged with all things administrative, which what that means is there's a number of employees in the county building, public works, parks, planning and zoning, IT, facilities, maintenance, things of that nature, like you would find in in a typical government office. And so all of the roles and responsibilities of those offices kind of fall under our umbrella. So there's a director of each of those departments, and they all report back to us about projects that they're working on, and they take the charge of the projects that we'd like to see done. And then on the other side, or the other kind of half of piece of what we do, is oversee the county budget. So all of the property tax funds that come in and sales tax funds that come in, we are responsible for making a budget each year for that. And we're rolling into budget season here right now for next year. But there's a number of other elected officials in the building, and they kind of run their own departments. So it's a really interesting setup where we have a payroll specialist and a benefits person, and she runs payroll for other elected officials like our collector, our recorder of deeds, our auditor, our clerk, our assessor, our sheriff. But all of those departments kind of run on their own. So they hire and fire their own employees. They still fall under our payroll processes and our benefits, but they kind of have their own management responsibilities. So it's a really interesting dynamic. Anyhow, so those are kind of the things that we're responsible for on a very high level. We meet on once a week in person for our work sessions, and then lots of other times throughout the week. So, we might show up on a Thursday all day for certain meetings, or, we met last week with a number of other elected officials. I do things like this in the evenings. I was at a couple of local city hall meetings last night at Weatherby Lake and at Lake Wacomis, just communicating out information to them. So it's not a typical 8 to 5, but it's kind of little evenings and afternoons and email on the weekends and all sorts of different things. And so when we meet and have our work sessions, we usually work with our county administrator. He's there kind of boots on the ground with all of the department heads and can communicate, the day to day with us. And then there's projects that come our way. So kind of going into what we're working on right now. So speaking to that administrative piece, there's not a human resources manager or director at the county, which is not great. It's not good for morale and the culture, and just that employees not knowing how to ask a question about their benefits or their time off or policies or, a complaint or anything that they might have. So that's become, we've been made aware of that is a problem and a concern for some employees. And so the commission has worked on, we are looking into hiring a third-party human resources company, kind of a fractional. It's kind of a new thing that's happening, in the world of work right now, is fractional or part-time or third-party companies that offer these services that make it a lot more economical for us. So rather than hiring a human resource director at $100,000, who then, let's say, might become friends with, Fred and Jackie down the hall, but then some other coworker has a problem with Fred or Jackie and is afraid to go talk to her about it because she's friends with them. So anyway, just a very random example off the cuff there, but this third party, it's a local company that we're looking into using, and they would be able to come in and work through any problems, talk to employees one-on-one in that confidential, private matter, and they're going to help us redo our employee handbook that hasn't been updated in quite a long time. So just some kind of basic things like that, just to, fix, again, some of that culture, just kind of help bring the building into the 21st century. So that's one of the big things that we've been working on the administrative side. Also, the building itself is going through a big renovation. There were some funds due to COVID called ARPA, American, now I've forgotten what it stands for. Uh, totally lost a blank. Drew a blank, but ARPA, ARPA. It's some funds that every government entity basically was given a different amount for post-COVID for putting money into and fixing up whatever it might be. And there's a whole, host of rules of how you can use this money. A lot of that money was used to move the sheriff's office to its new facility. So there is a facility over off of Ambassador that used to be called our resource center. And now that is the sheriff's headquarters because they had just completely run out of space up at the Platte City courthouse building. So they've moved over to that resource center and the sheriff is there. So a lot of the funds help do that again, bring things into the 21st century, which was so necessary for the sheriff's office. Just the technology piece, like Mayor talked about with the Parkville police, is just such an important piece of what law enforcement is doing. And so with them leaving the county building, it's kind of made for musical chairs around the county building. So one by one, different offices have been renovated with some of that ARPA money. Just a one-time money that we were given, and we decided rather than putting that money to some sort of a program that would need to continually be paid for, and how would we pay for it later, use it to do something like this that is a one-time fix something, with money that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So it's not a full gut renovation, but it's a really nice Band-Aid and lipstick. We've got new carpet and tile and paint and doors and windows and just some things to, not let the rain come in the windows and things like that. So things that the building really needed. Another thing that I feel like continually working on is the SB 190, the senior tax credit. So if you are 62 or older, you are eligible to apply for that. You can find the forms for that on the county website. And what that does is once you are approved for that, your valuation of your property essentially is paused at that amount and doesn't increase for the time that you own that property. Now, there might be a fire district or school levy or whatever that might increase over time, and that would increase your taxes because their levy increased, but your value of your home stays frozen, if you will. And your taxes should stay similar and sort of lower than they would have if you didn't have that. So that's something if you have questions about, absolutely ask me about that, about how to get the form and how to apply for that. Another thing that we are working on, why I was at some of those city hall meetings last night, and I came to the Parkville one last week, the Parks Department, we have a number of different sales taxes. One of them is a 1/4 cent parks tax, sales tax. And part of the revenues that we bring in from that quarter-cent sales tax for the parks is set aside for outreach grants. So for matching grants. One of the things it did was help give some funds to the Parkville Farmers Market. It has done large and small projects, but so we're trying to increase the amount of money we have in that bucket. It's historically for a lot of years been $250,000. And I'm not sure where that number came from or what that number is derived from, but we thought the sales tax often for many years has come in much higher than projected. So we always have a really nice amount of money in that parks bucket, and it can only be spent on parks, which is what's great about taxes like that. They're earmarked for that and they have to be spent on that. So I'd like to see us increase the amount of that outreach grant. So we haven't approved our budget for next year, but that's our plan, is to double the amount of the money in that grant bucket. So, you know, even we're going over to every, like I said, every single city. I think Commissioner Vanover went to the Dearborn meeting the other night just to let these cities know, you know, any public entity can apply for one of these grants, whether it's resurfacing a trail or resurfacing a playground, you know, that lining that might be ripped up, or a new playground, or it even covers things like cultural programs or historical programs. So there was a music program in Platte City last year that applied for this grant. And it was one of the smaller ones, but we approved that for like a free outdoor concert at the in the main street of Platte City last year. So anyway, share that with whoever you might know, any organizations that might want to apply for that grant. So that's one of the things that we are advertising right now. And then another thing that we are working on is the Tri-County Mental Health Board. We have put in motion the process to remove Platte County from the Tri-County Mental Health Board. So that is Clay and Ray and Platte counties. That board was created about 40 years ago. And I think at the time, 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I think it worked really well. It was an awesome idea to pool resources and pool money. All the counties were significantly smaller at that time. And it's become pretty clear by looking at some of the financial statements from the last few years that a lot of what Platte County is putting into that pot, it's not all coming back to Platte County. So a lot of it is going to fund Clay County programs and Ray County programs. And we've heard loud and clear that there are a lot of mental health issues in Platte County, in the whole country, but in Platte County as well. And there's a need for more services. So we thought that if we could remove ourselves from the Tri-County Board and create our own Platte County Mental Health Board, we could recoup that money and make sure that all the money we're paying into that fund stays in our county and can be used for resources in Platte County. So as soon as we have the exit from that, which could be another year. So it'll be a very thoughtful process of creating a board. We'll have an application process for board members. You know, we'll have requirements for experience and education and all those things for our board members, so that we have members on the board who understand the needs, the services that can be offered, so that we do it right. So that's, I'm sure, a big topic that we can talk more about later. And then speaking of boards, another thing that we do that I kind of left out at the beginning, another thing that we're responsible for as a commission is, in general, to appoint people to our boards. We have 8 or 10 different, I should know the number, but off the top of my head, I don't know the number of boards, but we have like the Senior Services Fund and the Developmental Disabilities Board and the Planning and Zoning Board and the Parks Board, and all different boards around the county that are volunteer. And so we again take applications for that and apply or appoint people to those boards whenever, and they all have different numbers of people on their boards and different numbers of years of terms. Some are 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, and they some stagger. Some only have 3 members, some have 8. So we're always kind of watching the expirations of those and making sure the board members have enjoyed their time and have been active and participating, and if they want to continue, and again, trying to find the right people to serve on those boards to give the right feedback and help us steer ideas, which is the point of a lot of those boards, and especially the boards that are in charge of paying out funds like the senior board, making sure that they are using those funds wisely. So that is in a nutshell what the commission does and what we're working on, and we'll talk more. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you both. I'm sorry for those glimpses into your job and into local governance. And there is a lot there to unpack. So we'll just take a minute, move the table up here, get the microphones ready, and get ready for our Q&A portion where we can engage our local leadership. So if you wanted to get a drink of water or stretch right now would be a good time. And we'll reconvene here in about 2 minutes. I know, I gotta try it. All right. Yeah, what's your question?
Find out about the boards that you were talking about and the application process.
Let me repeat that for the screen. How does the county participants find out about the boards and the application process for the boards you select?
Is this on? Yes. That's a great question. We don't have a formal process for that, which is something that we need to work on. We don't have a social media presence for the county or the commission. It's something that we have acknowledged we need. On our website, that is the one place people can find out. On the county website, there's a commission page, and there is a link to our current board application right there on that page. And there's a links to all of the different boards and the explanation of what they are and who's on them and what they do. So that currently is the place you would go, is to the county website.
All right. Any other questions? Let's hear one here.
I want to choose first. Recently, in an article that came out, that the county officials voted to increase their own pay by 30%. And I know some voted yes, but some voted no, but obviously more voted yes to increase their own pay. In a time where the community is struggling to live, basically. So maybe you can give us some insight into how the community should feel about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there is I believe it's a state statute, don't quote me, but I think, where there is a thing called the Salary Commission, and the Salary Commission meets on odd numbered years. So they last met in 2023, and the Salary Commission is made up of all elected officials at the county. So the 3 commissioners, collector, recorder of deeds, auditor, assessor, clerk, prosecuting attorney, sheriff. I don't think I left anyone out. Assessor, did I say? So they meet every 2 years on odd numbered years and discuss the salary for all the elected officials, not including the prosecuting attorney and the sheriff. Why they are invited to the meeting, I'm not sure, because their salary is set by the state. So they are part of the voting in the meeting, but they aren't affected by the vote. So however that makes sense, but as information. So all of the other elected officials that I named, we all make the same salary. And every 2 years, everyone sits around a table to discuss what the salary should be. And when there's a vote to change the salary, it goes into effect the next time someone is elected for that position. So for example, I was just sworn in January of 2025, and I'm in a 4-year term. So I'm not I won't receive the increase that was just voted on for my entire 4-year term. So when my term is up in 2028, if I run again and win, or someone else runs and is elected into the first commissioner position in 2029, they will then receive the increase that was voted on. So that's how it works. We are all on a little bit of a different schedule. For example, our presiding commissioner is on an opposite term of the other 2 commissioners, so his term is up in a year. So it's sort of hard to follow, but there is a chart. So that's how it works. So there was a motion made at the meeting by one of the elected officials, by the collector, to increase the salaries by 30%. I was shocked. There were a few others at the table that were shocked by the motion that was made. The reasoning was that in 25 or 30 years, some number that was given, the salary had not increased each year for cost of living. It had only been given a couple of raises a couple of different times. I'm understanding that there was a 6% a while back and an 8% a year ago. And I guess for some of the electeds, they decided they didn't think that was enough. I voted no. There were 6 yeses and 4 noes, and it passed. So there was some discussion, and there wasn't really much that we could do after it passed. So it's done. So in about a year, when there's an election for any new elected officials, a presiding commissioner, a collector, a clerk, an auditor, I think many of them are up for reelection next November. And the following January, they will receive that increase. So it makes it really difficult for the commission. I talked about that we're in charge of the budget. So, for 2026, we don't have to worry about it so much, but it's kind of looming now already that in 2027, that increase is across the board on 6 or 7 positions. So it's a huge chunk of money to take out of somewhere else in the budget and give to those salaries. So we do the commission. So from the general fund. So, I mentioned that there's a number of different taxes and sales taxes, and some of those taxes are earmarked for certain things. There's a law enforcement tax and a parks tax, and that money has to stay with those places. But general property tax just goes into the general fund into a big bucket, and we have to divvy up the general fund to all of those elected officials' offices. So we have to, so the collector will come to us and say, I need X dollars for my office for next year, including my salary and my employees and our office supplies and all the things. And we have to make all of their pieces fit into the bucket.
It doesn't fit when we see an increase in our tax.
That's hard to say. I don't think that's the first place that we would look, is to increase the taxes. I think there's other places to look, like cutting back on things, tightening belt straps, or whatever, bootstraps, whatever the phrase is. It's cutting waste, figuring out where can we save, where can we cut things, where, what doesn't need to be there? Why does something have a budget that is there just because it's always been there? Maybe we need to look a little deeper at some of those line items and figure out, why they have the number they have.
All right, a new question or a follow-up? All right, let's hear it.
Given your comment recently about possibly coming back as opposed to raising taxes to fund services, why did the commission choose to go ahead with children's services tax on their voters last year?
All right, I want to make sure to get that question summarized for our audience. And so that was yes, please. Yeah, could you come up here? Yeah, it was a good, very well worded question, and I'd like it to be safe.
Okay, let's make sure I get this right. Given that the what you just said, that the county is looking at possibly cutting back instead of raising taxes to address possible budget shortfalls because of the salary increases. And given that the county is withdrawing from the Tri-County Health Board, why didn't the commission choose to go ahead and take advantage of the Children's Services Tax Fund that was approved by voters last year?
I wasn't part of that vote, so I don't know the full reasoning. They voted to not do that in December before I was sworn in. But from what I understand is they didn't like the tax. They didn't see it necessary to be implemented. And I think to fully understand that, we would have to speak to the other two commissioners that are still on the commission. But that's what I gather from what they've mentioned since then to me. It's unfortunate. The voters voted for something and the elected officials did not follow the will of the people. And that's all I have to say on that. But I think that that's what I'm optimistic and excited about for withdrawing from the Tri-County Board, is that we will actually have access to all of the funds that we are receiving from property taxes for mental health pouring back into Platte County. And we won't be sending our property tax money that has been collected for mental health and sending it to 2 other counties. So whatever was lost or won't be received from that tax being implemented, we can't recoup all of that from this withdrawal, but we can at least some of it, and hopefully provide other services that are lacking or not available currently with that extra funds.
We did invite Commissioner Fricker to this forum. He was unavailable, and he will be running this year, or in 26. He's up for election, and so we aim to have all elected officials here for another community forum at that time, to be able to ask those questions to the folks who are in position at that time as well. All right, another question. Would you mind coming up here? Thank you so much. I lost my distance on the microphone, so this is as far as I can get it. Thank you.
Allyson, with the money coming back from Tri-County Mental Health, is it going to stay in mental health for Platte County, or is it going to be divided among anything the commissioners choose?
For mental health, it is also that tax, that money that comes in is is directed by a state statute. So we are collecting it on your line item on your bill for mental health, and just like that parks tax and that law enforcement tax, it can only be spent on mental health.
All right. Do we got a question for Mayor Dean yet? No? All right. Here's a question for me.
Hello.
You didn't have to ask that.
Can you hear me okay?
Pardon?
All right. I've got a question about the Bell Road project,
Mhm.
because I live on Bell Road. And I'm wondering, I was at the meeting last year, but I'm wondering how it's actually going to affect. I have a long stone wall. I have fencing, trees, mailbox that are all real
Yeah.
close to the road right now. And is there some specific engineer at City Hall that I can talk to and don't even
Yes.
know what the easement is, what part is Parkville's, what part is mine? So,
Right, if they're gonna acquire right away, if they need some of your right of way or some of your property for the right of way, they'll be contacting you, and if they haven't, they're probably not gonna use any of your property, but I do think it goes on your side of the road, isn't that your understanding too? So I would contact Dan Harper if you haven't gotten all your, and he'll probably put you in touch with the design engineers from the firm. And if there's a problem, just let me know and I'll be happy to arrange a meeting. Okay.
All right. Another question here. I know you got to go pretty soon. As far as it goes. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so, hello again. I'm Krista Kydra. I'm the pastor here at Parkville Presbyterian Church, and that plays a little bit into my question. So, Mayor, you referred to 819 Main Street as kind of a hub place, and it's kind of the goal here. And we're anchored really by three organizations with a lot of other organizations that hang out here. And those three organizations are Speak and Parkville Living Center and the congregation here at Parkville Presbyterian Church. And all three of those anchor organizations see a lot of the economic need that's happening in Parkville and Platte County because our range is pretty large. Obviously, in the last couple of weeks with the shutdown, Speak has, had to really accelerate their outreach and people. And I know that the city and the county support in different ways Speak, and grateful for that, and Parkville Living Center. I think housing is still a bit of a challenge here. And where we see it is with seniors who live in fixed low incomes, and then we do folks who are homeless or experiencing homelessness land here as well. And what I'm wondering is if the city and both the county have projects or are you thinking policy wise about how we're able to have more affordable housing in Platte County and Parkville and the Kansas City, Missouri part of Platte County? If there's, what does that world look like? Because we do see some of the challenges up close and personal here.
Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you. Yes, we talk about it all the time, and we've talked about it at the chamber. They talk in terms of workforce housing and how do we get more of that. But I have to be real honest, we don't have a plan. We've talked about funding a housing study for Parkville. What kind of housing do we want? How do we encourage it? Those kinds of issues. But we haven't funded yet. It's somewhere on the list below, the parking lot. They always talk about the parking lot. It's in the parking lot. So we haven't really honestly addressed it. I would hope as we did more infill housing, there might be more opportunities to create more affordable housing. I was hoping the Creekside would be, you ought to have Brian Mertz come sometime and talk about, it's gotten really expensive his housing is more expensive than he had planned initially because prices have gone up so much to build the houses. So he might be maybe you could get a few developers in the city and the county or something together and host a discussion on how to do that. But I have to be real honest, we don't have really a plan right now.
Yeah, I mean, ditto that. And I think the other group that can share insight on that is Mark. I think the Mid-America Regional Council has some groups. In fact, I think, didn't Stephen Leckey go to a planning meeting? I remember getting invited, and anyway, there was a housing forum with a number of local Northland and maybe even Metro KC people to discuss exactly that. So the people at Mark, I think it's definitely on their radar. Maybe not specifically for the Northland, but at least for the Metro. So at least there is a group that is.
And I would include
about
PACE, which is the chamber EDC in that discussion too.
That's a great question. We engage, like Krista was saying, we engage with the various populations, and as a community center, we encourage you to come and to hear what we're doing and how we're engaging the city. The city's been very positive in receiving any feedback we have in terms of listening, taking it back, putting it on their priorities. But this is I'm really glad that you so bluntly said there's no plan, right? That's the facts. And as citizenry, we can either let them come up with a plan or we can help come up with a plan, and those are the kinds of things that we do here at the Parkville Living Center all the time too. So I encourage you and anyone watching to get engaged, write your ward alderman, write your county commissioner, and explain the situations that you're seeing so that this can't, so that there is a voice that makes it up. There doesn't seem to be too much of an organized data collection pool for speak or our critical crisis interventions. But that's a really good question. Thank you. All right. Any other questions? Yes.
Commissioner, with the Platte County Mental Health Board that's being created, I have a two-part question. A, who decides who will be on that board? And B, has anyone been appointed to it yet?
No, no one has been appointed to it. We are still waiting for the official word from the other two counties, kind of allowing us out, which starts the clock ticking based on the state statute of how long we have to wait to get out. So it could be 2 more years. It might be a year. So the commission will decide who's on that board. We are throwing around the idea of perhaps starting with maybe like a couple of advisors who can help us find people who are more connected in the space, who can help us get more applicants or more quality applicants, again, to make sure that we do it right. So we will talk with the health department, the Platte County Health Department, and we've already gotten a couple of people who've applied through our other board application, which isn't necessarily the right way to do it, who've said, I want to help, who have some great background. And so we'll be pulling from, all sorts of resources and people to help advise us and help us figure out how to form the board the right way.
I had a question about that, and it was what model are you using? And I think it's the kind of the same question, and I think I heard the answers. I'm not sure, but like, what model are you using to develop a county mental health board, and what work was done before withdrawing?
Yeah, no, we don't have a model, and that's exactly why we have a lot of time. So we have at least a year, if not 2 years, before it's all put in motion. But yeah, we need to do the work, and we're in the middle of that, of reaching out to other counties, other states, other places that have something similar to figure out how many are on their board, get a copy of their bylaws, figure out, is that the route we want to take? Yeah, so there's a lot of research that has to be done, and yeah, the answer is we don't know yet.
Yes, a follow up on that, sure.
So, and you kind of mentioned this about how you appoint people to the boards. In the past, it has been family and friends that have been on the boards. And there's no oversight on that, like we've recently seen with the Board of Equalization that voted to help themselves out and not help Platte County out. So will that be the way that this board is put together, and the rest of the boards, or will there actually be people that are right for the job that apply that will get these positions?
I mean, if I have anything to do with it, it won't be that way. And I feel like I have already helped guide the commission in my first 11 months of that with this application that we just started this year, and vetting those applicants. We've had a number of different Zoom calls with a number of different applicants, even if it's for something like the Parks Board, which is also important. But it's not spending money, tax money, but still the Parks Board is an advisory board that's important to our park staff. And, we interviewed 3 different candidates for an opening on that position or on that board, and none of us knew any of them. Those just came organically to our website as applicants. And so we researched them as well as we could through Google and social media and asking people, do you know them? And then again, Zoom interviewed with them, and we believe found a couple of great candidates for that Parks Board. So that's just one example that I think the process is working. I think it's slow because some of those board seats have 2, 3, 4, 5-year terms. And so we have to wait till some of those old friends term out. There are some people who are on 4 different boards, which I think is not okay. And so every time I'm at that seat and I'm in that room and I'm in that conversation, which is 100% of the time on those conversations, is putting my foot down to say, no, it's not going to be your friend, Joe. Why? How is he qualified? And he's on 3 other boards already. So yeah, so I'm slowly trying to change that. And Commissioner Fricker is totally on board with that and helped make the Google form for that and the application for that. And so they're open to that. And every time we have an expiration coming, which there is one coming on the Board of Equalization, I've already marked it on our agenda to discuss in a couple of weeks that there's an expiration coming in January, and we need to discuss who's going to be in the seat after that.
It reminds me of Parkville, say 10 years ago, when communication was an issue. And there was a period where there was a lot of work done for that, but there was a lot of people kind of with the story of ill communication. And so it took a while for that transition to happen. And it appears as though we might be seeing some of that transition on our county level too. So the way to make sure, not just hope, is to hold them accountable. So thank you for saying this stuff and giving us hope. And as citizenry, I think we are looking forward to that change, and we'll continue to ask questions and watch the process unfold.
And when there's opportunities, get engaged,
Yeah. Right.
you know.
So
Yeah.
yeah, if you're asked.
Yeah. And as a follow-up, I mean, when I just glanced at your face, it made me think of Brittany in Parkville. And when we had 2 openings on the Parks Board, we didn't have a ton of applicants in our pool on our little applicant list. So I reached out to Brittany, the Parks Director in Parkville, whom I knew personally. So it was an easy ask, which, some could say, well, that's your friend then. But I sent it to her saying, hey, we have an opening. You know people in the parks world. Do you know anyone in Platte County who would want to serve on our Parks Board at the county level? And please tell others you know. So some of it is, a push rather than a pull, or a pull rather than a push, because I don't have the applicants coming in and we don't have a great way to advertise it. So we are still using that network of people we know, but hopefully that it not just my brother and my neighbor. It is
got a
an
good
actual, it's an actual, I'm asking a qualified person who works in that space to send me recommendations on qualified people.
Right. And like you were saying, the other way is for us to let them know when we know people who we would like to see in that position as well. And it sounded like there was an application process on the website in the works or in place.
It is in place for all of our boards. There is a basic application that you can fill out your name and information and what boards you are interested in serving on, and then a comment box for whatever you want to share with us. And if an opening comes up on one of those boards, we'll reach out.
I think that's the best way to be involved right there. Question, would you mind coming up? Thank you. Thank you.
I promise I'll keep it short this time too. My question is, you mentioned not having a plan to replace all of the services that are being provided through the Tri-County Health Board. Why is the commission making the decision to withdraw from the Tri-County Health Board if there isn't a plan in place to replace that services?
Well, I don't think that I said we don't have a plan to replace the services. That's not what I said. I said we don't have a plan in place to figure out the makeup of the board and what the board looks like and what the bylaws look like and things like that in the back end. But the services that are being offered will continue as they are until there's a board in place. We had someone from the courts, one of the judges came by to talk to us after she heard about the withdrawal and wanted to talk to us about all the programs that she uses through that board. And we said, we're not it's not going away. And she said, oh, thank goodness. And so, sure, could there have been some different communication about it? But no, the plan is to keep the services how they are now, not take them away, but hopefully add to them and add more services. There's only 1 or 2 or 3 providers that the Tri-County Board uses. They're, Synergy and Beacon, and I've forgotten the third one sorry, I'll think of it. Anyway, they are the biggest providers of those services. So they will continue to provide those services and continue to send proposals, just like they do to the Tri-County Board. They'll send a proposal to our board as well to be providers of those services, just coming from our checkbook instead of that checkbook.
All right. A lot of tax questions, a lot of tax talk here, but I guess that's what makes local government work or government work. So here's a question from our cameraman.
Mayor, thank you. Concerning the Highway 9 project, you were right. It was kind of contentious, this last summer in July. I think the vote was 7-1. There were several aldermen at that meeting though, that also raised the concern about, the ultimate cost of this, since this was kind of, we're shooting for the sky here.
Sure.
And I think the consulting firm came back and said, hey, by October, we'll have a better idea. In December, we'll come back to the board with a more accurate idea of what this could cost us here. Are we still on track for that?
I'll have
that
to
already
check
scheduled
on
for a
that,
meeting?
whether for December. But yeah, I said we're having this meeting in December 8th. They're really focusing on what would the merchants and the community as a whole like to see downtown as far as street amenities and making that a more pedestrian friendly community. So they're not focusing on the money, but I'll ask that question. That's a good one. When will we get a firmer estimate? And they've been working towards that. It's mainly figuring out, how much does it cost to extend this culvert and how much is it going to cost to widen this bridge, and working out the details with the railroad over where's the road actually going to go and that. So as those things get resolved, we'll have better numbers. But that's a good question.
So we think we're gonna shoot for December, but it may be March or June before.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be June. I mean, hopefully it'll be at worst shortly after the first of the year, because the board of aldermen want to check in, where are we on this? One of the things one Alderman Whitley said when there were questions, especially around the fire district and that, is, well, let's fail. If we're going to fail, let's fail quickly, which is a phrase we've continued to remind ourselves about. So the board wants to know, where are we? And if it's not going to work, then let's switch to another strategy. So, but that's a good question.
I've got another tax-related question for you, Mayor Dean. I recall a recent infrastructure tax in the last municipal election. It failed, is that right?
That's right.
What's the impact of that in a budget that exists next year, for example?
Well, it sort of had there were 2 components to it. One part was we'll put more money, use this tax to put into streets, curbs, sidewalk repairs. The other half was to fix some of our facilities. If you ever go by the old street barn, which is, it's not really a barn, it's more a shed, just to the west of Ace Hardware there, kind of down below, it kind of sits back up. It's falling down. It actually doesn't have a sewer. It doesn't have water. So they bring in water. So it's not a great facility. It's not big enough for our equipment and that. So some of our equipment has to sit out in the weather, and it's not, anyways, someday we need to do something for that. So that stuff won't get done. or we'll nibble at the edges as best we can. We just won't, we have money we put into curbs and sidewalks and street. And part of the use tax that was approved a couple of years ago, that also, part of that went into streets and curbs and that. So we'll still have that money. So it's not that we're not going to be fixing curbs and that. But every year when we do that, we do kind of an annual program. Every year when we do that, everybody, the residents, the board feels, well, we're not doing enough, and, it's amazing. Fixing a curb costs $67 a foot. And we have something like 500,000 feet of curbs. So, you can sort of do the math. So our intent was to try to put more money into that. So you won't see, because those funds, that temporary, it was called a temporary tax levy, those are all going towards paying off the debt from projects that were approved 20 years ago. So you saw the benefit from that 20 years ago, and there hasn't really been anything since then except we've been paying off for it. So the parking lot next to White Aloe Creek, that was built with that money. City Hall was funded with that money. The Sullivan Nature Sanctuary was funded with that money. The riprap and that down Rush Creek was funded with that money. Those are all projects actually before I think I moved here. But so you don't see an immediate, you're not going to see an immediate drop in services. We're not going to fire a couple cops or anything like that. So I have to be honest about that. Now, if you ever at City Hall, we had a big leakage problem. The north side of City Hall down below ground is not sealed. And so it all came in there in the council room and that. So you'll see just a blank wall with studs and some rust down it, because we're trying to figure out, one, what do we need to do to stop the leaking? And then how do we pay for it? So we'll have to figure that out. I think at some point, we're still probably going to come back with an even more targeted fund. It actually, just interesting, it actually passed in wards 1 and 2, and it failed in wards 3 and 4. And so maybe we need to do more targeting. And
Thank you.
so anyways, that's where that is.
Thank you. Any other questions on hand? So I provide senior services in Weston and Dearborn. Did you have a question? No. I provide senior services in Weston and Dearborn, and I was talking to them about this town hall forum, and they had a question about the county that I want to raise here and bring them into this forum. It was county level animal control. Is that something that you've thought of or see as an issue instead of having municipality animal control as a county for the spaces in between?
Yes, for sure. It is a really, it's an onion. There is a lot to it. There's a lot to an animal control. I'm the animal lover commissioner, and I have an entire notes page that I have been adding to and keeping since January 1st, trying to understand the issue and trying to talk to all the parties involved and try to come up with a solution. And it is too big of a problem for just me to find a solution to. So I am still talking to so many people. I've talked at length with the sheriff about it. He assumed office the same time I did. So there's a lot of history, a lot of things that happened before 2025 that neither of us really totally understand. But to say that, and also to answer another part of your question was about municipalities versus the county. So there are, faux pas. I've been to talk to them as well. I've talked with a lot of people about this. Faux pas has a great relationship, as an example, with the Parkville police. They gave me a tour. They explained the whole process and how it works when the police find a stray dog in the city of Parkville, and it's after hours, late at night, whatever, or anytime. They can take it to faux pas down there on 9 and here. And I believe they told me that even the officers have a key to the cage that's at the outside, that they could leave the dog at 2 o'clock in the morning and alert faux pas and say, and when you get there in the morning, there is going to be an animal there. Do what you need to do. And faux pas has an agreement, a dollar amount of $10,000, something, $6,000. Yeah.
For the dogs, and then this year we approved 6,000
For the cats. And so anyway, so there's a lot of details there, but,
Right.
but there's, and I think there are partnerships like that with other cities and their police force. So there's not that set up with the sheriff and anything outside of a city. There used to be a doctor, a vet in Platte City or outside of the city limits that did that. He would take the animals for the sheriff that were not in a city, and he would give them care. He retired. He sold his practice. The new vet who owns the practice took the animals for a couple of years, like the old doctor did, and it became way too much for her to bear, for her staff, and monetarily, and all sorts of reasons. Safety, health, all the things. And so she stopped doing that. So there is no longer a person in the county that will do that. And we don't have a facility for that. We have 2 sheriffs who have canines. And I believe both of those canines live with the deputy. And so the sheriff would like us to have a facility, at least so that when the deputy has to leave, the canine has a kennel to stay at home. So we've been talking with him about that. We've been talking about trying to find a place like Faux Paws or like Northland Animal Wellness and Paws. I forget the acronym. There's also a shelter in Riverside, and obviously Casey Pet Project. There's a million places out there. And so is there a way we can figure out a group, an advisory group, a committee, a board, a something, a committee, a community action group who cares and wants to help solve this problem? We don't have the funds at the moment to just up and build a kennel and find a vet and staff to take animals. And there is not a vet to do that right now. So we have animal control at the county level for aggressive and rabid animals, but we do not have animal control at the county level for someone saw a cat walk across their lawn. We don't have animal control for that.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I was wondering if it's expensive to care for them. It must be expensive if the problem runs rampant, and it sounds like those aggressive dogs is how you still address the problem part.
Yeah, we still have an animal control officer and a vehicle, and that is only for those aggressive and rabid cases.
All right. One more question here.
Because I just went to the Faux Pas Gala, and I thought there should be someone from the city that comes to these things and just makes their presence known. And I think that would be a good idea for just someone from the city, because those people will tell you what they kind of.
Yes, my dear friend is on that board, and she invited me to that, and I had another engagement and could not come, and I was very sad. I fully support Faux Pas and have been to so many of their events and just looked at their auction they had online, and I'm a huge supporter of Faux Pas. And I have been talking, I have a very long text thread with one of the board members this week talking about all of these issues and how we can work together to solve it and who else we can bring on our team to try to fix it.
I think one of the committee or someone from Parkville itself should just be at these galas to say, hey, I'm part of the city, here I am.
Well, we do have a liaison, used to be your counterpart.
Alderman Lee.
Yeah, Alderman Lee is our official liaison, so he works with them. He goes to the board meetings some of the time and that. And so I don't know what his schedule was for that event, so.
It just would look nice to have someone from the county.
I think we honestly try to come to as many things and events as possible. Sometimes it's hard to make every event. And so we try, and we're very supportive of faux pas, but also other organizations. So.
All right. Well, I want to be sure to let everyone know the ways in which people can hear about city news and outreach. So what would you recommend be the best way for people to stay connected to city news?
Well, first of all, we have an e-newsletter, so that comes out once a month. So you can go online and you can just sign up, put your email in. I would get that. In fact, I did an article in that about how to have an effective presentation to the board with it, because I got frustrated with some of the shouting and stuff. I don't know if anybody that should have read it, but but anyways, we have the e-newsletter and we're on Facebook, have a Facebook page and that. The other thing is we just started, this was our first year and we'll do it each year, a Citizens Academy. So where we take applications and we accommodate about 15 people. It's a 6-week course. And, 1 week we do the police and for a couple hours. Next week we maybe do public works and so on. And you learn a lot more about the city and what we do and what we don't do, what we're not responsible for. And that's a good way to get involved. In fact, one of the people that came through this last class, she got so interested and we had an opening for planning commissioner from Ward 4. And so she's now a planning commissioner. And so that's what we hope happens with it, that people get engaged and become more involved in the city.
And what's that website that you can report like ordinance violation?
Oh yeah, we have something called C-Click Fix. There's actually an app. You can go to the app store and put in C-Click Fix, all one word. And it's, if there's a problem, there's a pothole in the street or whatever it is, you can take a picture of it and pick out a category, pothole or something. You send it in and then they'll report back to you, okay, we got it, we fixed it, or thanks, or gee, we're not going to be able to get to it for 3 weeks or whatever the reason is. And so we get 200 or 300, notices a year through that. So it's a great thing. Or gee, they didn't plow my street, where are they?
Yeah, I
got a
think
lot.
that's part of that communication opening that happened with the city. And I just wanted to highlight that because they are responsive and that is how we can tap on the door of the city from our phones.
Yeah, see,
And then what about the
is
county?
awesome. And when I used to be an alderman for the city of Parkville before I became a commissioner. And so when I first got in the commissioner seat, I said to the other commissioners, Parkville does it so well. We are missing out. How can we fix this? Parkville has a newsletter and Parkville has C-Click Fix and Parkville has a great website and Parkville has a Facebook page. And so alas, here we are 11 months later and we still don't have it, but it is, it's on the long list. It is definitely something we lack and we realize that, but really, the information that we have is again, just on our website. All of our agendas are posted there, all of our minutes, all of our board information, when they meet, the calendar. And you are welcome to attend any of our meetings that are on the calendar.
Do you have office hours?
On Mondays,
Just on Monday?
yeah. Yeah, and if you want to meet at any other time, you can reach out and we can meet.
Because the commissioner is a full-time position. Is that right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a salary just like all the other elected officials, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that we don't have an office where we see the public. Like, let's say the treasurer has a window that has to be open by state statute, required to be available to the public 8 business hours every day. The clerk and the collector and the treasurer all have that by statute that they have to do that. But like the assessor, or I mean, the auditor and us don't have that same thing, you know, so we don't have a window or a desk where people come talk to us like those other offices do.
Right on. So it sounds like the website is that place for now. Phone numbers and emails are on that website as well.
And we all have, all of the elected officials have email addresses. Please email us.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the thoughtful questions and comments tonight. What we've seen here is exactly what makes our community strong. People coming together, listening, and choosing respect, even if there's disagreeing. So thank you to our speakers, Mayor Dean Katerndahl and Commissioner Allyson Berberich, for your time, your openness, and your example of public service. And thank you to each of you here tonight for showing up and for showing that community dialogue is not only possible, but it's powerful. And what we've done tonight may seem simple, right? A small group gathering. We listened, we shared ideas, but in today's world, that's no small thing. Each respectful conversation, each moment of genuine listening, each neighborly handshake, those are building blocks of trust. And trust is what keeps a community strong when things get hard. So as we leave here, I hope we carry forward these reminders that civil discourse doesn't mean avoiding hard topics. It means facing them together with respect. And that every voice in this room, every story, and every question belongs to this shared effort of shaping a healthier and more connected Parkville and Platte County. The Parkville Living Center is proud to serve as a place where conversations like this happen. We hope you'll stay involved, come to future forums, volunteer. We're having a Thanksgiving dinner on Thanksgiving Day. Volunteer, donate, share ideas, and help us keep growing a community where everyone belongs and every voice matters. Thank you again for being here tonight and for helping to keep the heart of this community open, honest, and strong.
Thank you.